Hello, my name is Matthew, and I just read The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a part of my read along series and book club with Steve Donahue. We're reading murder mysteries in the month of March, and we're reading all of the Sherlock Holmes short stories. And The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger is one of the best stories I've read in a while, and not necessarily one of my favorite or best Sherlock Holmes stories. It's just a great story that involves Sherlock Holmes. And one of the reasons that I found it so strong and powerful is because it's emotionally affecting in a way that very rarely comes up in these Sherlock Holmes cases that feel romanticized and adventurous and theatrical. This one really has a sense of tragedy that is not entirely explored in a lot of these short stories and cases as told by Watson. And there's a brilliant aspect, a brilliant direction or approach into this structured kind of story. Typically, it's Sherlock and Watson in the apartment. Somebody bursts in, and there's a case. This one has many aspects. It's a very short story, but it is intense and condensed. The woman, there's a woman that comes to Sherlock, and she's exasperated and looking for help. And it's because she has a lodger who wears a veil over her head, and she's been renting out this room to this lodger for a very long time, months and months and months, maybe a couple years, but a very long time. And she's only seen, the landlady had only seen her face once, and she was horrified. Described it as it was almost as if there wasn't a face there at all. And the last story that I had read, which was The Lion's Mane, I had mentioned that there was this gruesome, highly detailed description of a dead body that was more direct and realistic, to spend time looking at a dead body and taking in the horrific aspects of witnessing something like that. And it's written on the page. And this is a description from The Lion's Mane. Let me see. This is the dead body found on the beach. His back was covered with dark red lines, as though he had been terribly flogged by a thin wire scourge. The instrument with which this punishment had been inflicted was clearly flexible, for the long, angry wheels curved round his shoulders and ribs. There was blood dripping down his chin, for he had bitten through his lower lip. In the paroxysm of his agony, his drawn and distorted face told how terrible that agony had been. And this is a new phase of these short stories where we're not turning away or glossing over the tragedy of criminal behavior or punishment, torture, violence, murder. We're directly in front of it. And in this story, we have a lodger who wears a veil over her face because she's been mutilated, and we're going to learn the story of what happened with her. And we don't get highly detailed description of scars or mangled masses or a mess or whatever created a mangled up face, we get the reactions. And we also know that this is someone that has been living like this for a very long time. And so, without the gory details, there's some, but they're slight. Without the gory details, we still understand that this is someone that has been living with consequences, repercussions. And it turns out this is a cold case, which I found to be so interesting. This is the lodger is talking about this woman, and she's in her apartment. The lodger is thinking that maybe she's dying. She's in her room alone. She never comes out. She's crying murder. The lighthearted aspect of this whole story is the main concern that the landlady has is that the woman with the veiled face pays well. And so it's advantageous for the landlady to keep her paying her rent. So the whole springboard of the story, which is serious and dramatic and tragic, the root of it is just a woman that's concerned that a good lodger keeps paying her rent. A little bit of humor there. But this woman suffered a tragedy. She worked at a circus and was part of a freak show of sorts. They had a lion caged up. They had acrobats and clowns. Toured around England and produced their circus show. And the husband and wife, the wife is now the one wearing the veil. The husband and wife tended to the lion and even performed shows in the lion's cage. They believed that since they were the ones that were interacting and spending time with the lion and also feeding the lion, that the lion saw them as as the lion's benefactor. And so there was just a terrible night of horrific violence. They go in, the husband and wife go in to feed the lion. In an instant, the husband is dead, his head is smashed in, his body and face have been crushed. When the other circus people come out of their tents, hearing screams and pleas for help, the lion is on top of this woman, just crushing and clawing and biting and mangling her face. Some people were able to usher in the lion back into the cage to lock it up. And this case is something that Sherlock might not have been involved in, but was aware of and knew that although it does seem like the lion got out, attacked some people, they got the lion back in, there were questions. It didn't seem like that was the end of the story. Sherlock felt like maybe there was more to be solved. That the easy story that kind of sort of answers all the questions left loose ends. And we get the backstory. The woman had her husband, who was described as this pig-faced, bestial character, just a horrific boar-like man who married her through force and kept her by hostage and trapped her into this loveless, terrible, violent marriage. She falls in love with a handsome, athletic acrobat that is part of this circus troupe. The two of them, the acrobat and the unhappy wife, come up with a plan to stage a scenario where it looks like the lion mauled the husband to death, and then they would get away with it. And it all goes wrong. They smash in the husband's head with this club meant to look like a lion's claw. And then they open up the cage to feed the lion, but the lion senses the scent of blood, comes bursting out, creating havoc. The acrobat flees, cowardly, runs away, and the husband is dead. The woman is horrifically mutilated and scarred for life. Is now living the life of a shut-in, and it's tragic. Sherlock is there. The woman is explaining what happened. It's called The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger. It's hardly an adventure at all. It's just a case that had been unresolved. We come across the woman that's living with these consequences and is just telling her story. It's extremely emotionally effective and affecting and just tragic. I really enjoyed going through this story. It's not Sherlock figuring stuff out the way that we're so used to. It's very much Sherlock sitting down with someone who's gone through an incredibly traumatic event. She was one of the perpetrators. She was an accomplice. All of that ties into the story, but there's a moment where she pulls her veil up, and even Sherlock and Watson just leave the room. And so, although it's not a typical Sherlock Holmes short story, it wouldn't be a great first start if someone wanted to read like a representative Sherlock Holmes short story. This is not the spot, but it's great. It is a good start if you just wanted to read a really good story and it happens to have Sherlock Holmes in it. Extremely well written. The characterization, the description, not the camera not turning away from serious trauma. So let me know if you've read it. It's The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care.